The galactic conundrum. The chamber was a marvel of interstellar engineering, a vast dome of shimmering alloy that refracted light into a kaleidoscope of colors. It was a place where the galaxy's most influential species gathered to debate, deliberate, and decide the fate of civilizations. Today, the air was thick with tension, a palpable hum of unease that even the advanced atmospheric regulators couldn't dispel. The Galactic Council was in session, and the topic at hand was humanity. At the center of the chamber, a holographic projection of Earth rotated slowly, its blue and green hues a stark contrast to the sterile metallic surroundings. Around it, delegates from a dozen species sat in tiered rows, their forms as varied as the stars they hailed from. There was Xirax, the crystalline Xyrillian representative, whose faceted body caught the light and scattered it like a prism. Beside him sat Velnara, the telepathic Veln ambassador, her translucent skin pulsing faintly with the rhythm of her thoughts. And then there was Gronther, the methane-breathing Grand delegate, his bulky exoskeleton creaking as he shifted in his seat, his compound eyes scanning the room with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. "The data is clear," Xirax said, his voice a resonant chime that echoed through the chamber. "Humans are unpredictable. Their behavior defies logical analysis. They laugh in the face of danger, engage in unnecessary physical competitions, and their ethical systems are riddled with contradictions. How can we trust them to adhere to galactic law?" Velnara's skin flickered with a soft blue light as she spoke, her words appearing directly in the minds of the delegates. "And yet, they have shown remarkable resilience. Their history is one of survival against impossible odds. Perhaps their unpredictability is their strength." Gronther let out a low, rumbling growl, the sound reverberating through the chamber. Strength or recklessness? Their so-called resilience is born of chaos. They are a danger to themselves and to us. I say we deny their petition for full citizenship. The debate continued, each delegate presenting their arguments with a mix of logic, emotion, and cultural bias. The humans, it seemed, were an enigma, a species that defied easy categorization. They were both creators and destroyers, capable of acts of great kindness and unspeakable cruelty. And it was this duality that made them so difficult to judge. As the discussion reached a fever pitch, the chamber doors slid open with a soft hiss, and all eyes turned to the figure that stepped inside. It was a human, a woman of average height and unremarkable appearance, at least by galactic standards. She wore a simple uniform, the fabric a dull gray that contrasted sharply with the vibrant colors of the chamber. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, and her brown eyes scanned the room with a calm, measured gaze. "Captain Elena Marlowe," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe I can offer some clarity on the matter at hand." The room fell silent, the delegates exchanging uneasy glances. They had not expected a human to appear unannounced, and certainly not one who seemed so ordinary. Xirax was the first to recover. "Captain Marlowe," he said, his crystalline form shimmering with curiosity. "You have our attention. Speak." Elena stepped forward, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. She paused for a moment, her gaze sweeping over the assembled delegates, before she began. "You call us unpredictable," she said, her voice carrying a hint of amusement. "And you're right, we are. But unpredictability is not a flaw. It's a survival mechanism. When faced with the unknown, we adapt. We improvise. We find solutions where none seem to exist. And that, I believe, is what makes us valuable to the galactic community." Gronther snorted, a puff of methane escaping from his respirator. "Valuable? Or dangerous? Your history is littered with wars, with destruction. How can we trust a species that turns on itself?" Elena's expression hardened, and for a moment, the calm facade slipped, revealing a flicker of something darker beneath. "Our history is complicated," she admitted, "but it's also a history of learning, of growth. We've made mistakes, yes, but we've also learned from them, and we've used those lessons to become better, stronger, more united." Velnara's skin pulsed with a soft, thoughtful glow. And what of your contradictions? Your laughter in the face of danger, your so-called sports that serve no practical purpose? How do you explain these things? Elena smiled, a small, enigmatic smile that seemed to hold a world of secrets. Laughter is a release, she said, a way to cope with fear, with stress. And as for sports, they're a way to push ourselves, to test our limits. They're a reminder that we're capable of more than we think. The delegates exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Elena's words had struck a chord, but they were still unsure, still wary of this strange, unpredictable species. And what of your ethics? Xerax asked, his voice tinged with suspicion. Your so-called moral code seems to shift with the wind. How can we trust a species that cannot even agree on what is right and wrong? Elena's smile faded, and for a moment, she looked almost sad. Our ethics are a work in progress, she said quietly. We're still learning, still growing. But isn't that true of all species? Isn't that what it means to be alive? The room fell silent once more, the weight of her words hanging in the air. For a moment, it seemed as though the delegates might relent, might see humanity for what it truly was. A species of contradictions, yes, but also of potential. But then Gronther spoke, his voice a low, menacing rumble. Words are easy, he said. Actions are what matter. If you wish to prove your worth, then prove it. Show us that humanity is more than just chaos. Elena's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, there was a glint of something fierce in her gaze. Very well, she said, her voice steady and cold. I'll show you exactly what humanity is capable of. And with that, the chamber erupted into chaos once more, the delegates shouting over each other as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. But Elena stood firm, her expression unreadable, her mind already racing with the possibilities of what was to come. The stage was set, the players in place. And as the debate raged on, one thing became clear. Humanity was not just a subject of discussion. They were a force to be reckoned with. And the galaxy would never be the same. The test of understanding. The council chamber, once a cacophony of voices, fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life. A massive star, its surface roiling with violent eruptions, dominated the projection. Around it, a fleet of refugee ships hung in precarious orbit, their engines sputtering as they struggled to escape the star's inevitable collapse. The simulation was a masterpiece of galactic engineering, designed to test the mettle of any species deemed worthy of joining the interstellar community. For Captain Elena Marlowe, it was a chance to prove humanity's worth, or confirm its critics' worst fears. This is your trial, Xerax announced, his crystalline form shimmering with a cold, detached authority. A collapsing star threatens a fleet of refugees. You have 1 hour to save them. Fail, and humanity's petition for galactic citizenship will be denied. Elena stepped into the simulation's control interface, her hands hovering over the holographic controls. The delegates watched intently, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Gronther leaned forward, his compound eyes narrowing as he prepared to witness what he assumed would be humanity's inevitable failure. Velnara's translucent skin pulsed with a faint, anxious glow, her telepathic mind already anticipating the chaos to come. The simulation began. The star's eruptions intensified, sending shockwaves rippling through the fleet. The refugee ships, their hulls already battered and scorched, began to break apart. Alarms blared, and the holographic display lit up with warnings. Engine failure, hull breach, life support critical. Elena's fingers danced across the controls, her movements precise and deliberate. She rerouted power from non-essential systems, diverting it to the engines. The fleet's speed increased, but it wasn't enough. The star's gravitational pull was too strong, its collapse too rapid. She's wasting time, Gronther muttered, his voice a low rumble. The engines are useless. She should be evacuating the ships. But Elena didn't evacuate. Instead, she did something that made the delegates gasp in unison. She activated the fleet's defensive shields, not to protect the ships, but to redirect the star's radiation. The shields flared to life, forming a reflective barrier that bounced the deadly energy back toward the star. "What is she doing?" Xerax demanded, his voice tinged with disbelief. "She's accelerating the collapse." Elena ignored him. Her focus was absolute, her mind racing through calculations and possibilities. The star's core, already unstable, began to implode under the redirected radiation. The simulation's sensors screamed with warnings. Gravitational anomaly detected. And then, with a blinding flash, the star exploded. The shockwave ripped through the fleet, but instead of destroying it, the force propelled the ships forward, their engines now operating at maximum capacity. The refugee vessels shot out of the star's gravitational pull, their trajectories stabilized by the explosion's momentum. The simulation ended. The chamber was silent, the delegates staring at the holographic display in stunned disbelief. The fleet was safe, its passengers saved by a maneuver that defied all logic and reason. "Impossible," Xerax whispered, his crystalline form flickering with confusion. She used the star's destruction to save them." Gronther slammed a clawed fist against the table, his exoskeleton creaking with the force of the impact. "Reckless," he roared. "She risked everything on a gamble. That's not strategy. That's madness." Velnara's skin pulsed with a soft, contemplative glow. "But it worked," she said quietly. "The fleet is safe. The refugees are alive. Can we truly call that madness?" Elena stepped away from the control interface, her expression calm but her eyes burning with intensity. "You wanted proof of humanity's worth," she said, her voice steady. "There it is. We don't follow your rules. We make our own." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier skepticism giving way to a grudging respect. But Gronther wasn't convinced. "You got lucky," he growled. "One successful gamble doesn't prove anything. Humanity is still a danger to itself and to the galaxy." Elena's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. "Luck had nothing to do with it," she said. "That simulation was based on a real event. A star collapsed near Earth a century ago. We faced the same choice. Follow the rules and die, or break them and live. We chose to live." The room fell silent once more, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The delegates were beginning to see humanity in a new light, not as a species of chaos, but as one of resilience and ingenuity. But Elena wasn't finished. "You judge us for our unpredictability," she continued, her voice growing sharper. "But what you call chaos, we call adaptability. You call us reckless, but we call it courage. You see contradictions, but we see complexity. And if you can't understand that, then maybe you're the ones who aren't ready for the galaxy." The delegates stared at her, their expressions a mix of shock and indignation. No one had ever spoken to the Galactic Council in such a manner, no one dared. But Elena stood firm, her gaze unwavering, her defiance a challenge to their authority. And then, something unexpected happened. Velnara's skin pulsed with a soft, approving glow. "Perhaps," she said, her voice carrying a hint of admiration, "we have underestimated humanity. Perhaps it is time we reconsider our assumptions." Xerax's crystalline form shimmered with uncertainty, but he nodded slowly. "The trial is concluded," he announced. "We will deliberate and render our decision." Elena inclined her head, a small, satisfied smile playing on her lips. She had done what she came to do. She had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. But as she turned to leave, Gronther's voice stopped her in her tracks. "This isn't over," he said, his tone low and menacing. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from finished." Elena paused, her back still turned to him. "Then we'll be ready," she said softly. "We always are." And with that, she walked out of the chamber, leaving the delegates to grapple with the implications of what they had just witnessed. The stage was set, the lines drawn. Humanity had proven its worth, but the true test was yet to come. And the galaxy would never be the same. The fractured mirror. The council chamber was a storm of voices, a tempest of outrage and disbelief that echoed off the polished walls. The delegates, once composed and regal, now resembled a pack of predators circling their prey. Captain Elena Marlowe stood at the center of it all, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. She had just revealed her true identity, not as a mere diplomat, but as a genetically augmented harmonizer, a product of humanity's desperate attempts to survive its own destructive tendencies. "You lied to us." Zirax's crystalline form flickered with anger, his voice a sharp, resonant chime that cut through the noise. "You presented yourself as a representative of humanity, but you are something else entirely." Elena met his gaze without flinching. "I am human," she said, her voice steady. "Just not the kind you expected. After our last global war, we realized that survival required more than technology or diplomacy. It required change. We changed ourselves." Velnara's translucent skin pulsed with a soft, troubled glow. "You altered your own biology?" she asked, her telepathic voice carrying a note of disbelief. "To what end?" "To harmonize," Elena replied. "To bridge the gaps between us, to understand each other in ways words never could. We enhanced our capacity for empathy, for cooperation. It was the only way to prevent our extinction." Gronther let out a low, rumbling growl, his compound eyes narrowing as he leaned forward. "And yet you still wage wars," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You still destroy. What good are your enhancements if they cannot stop your own violence?" Elena's expression darkened, and for a moment, the calm facade slipped, revealing a flicker of pain beneath. "We're not perfect," she admitted, "but we're trying. And sometimes trying is enough." The delegates fell silent, their anger giving way to a grudging curiosity. They had always seen humanity as a species of contradictions, but now they were beginning to understand the depth of those contradictions, and the lengths to which humans would go to overcome them. It was Velnara who broke the silence. "Your enhancements," she said, her voice soft but probing. "How do they work?" Elena hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully. "They allow us to feel what others feel," she said. "Not just emotions, but intentions, motivations. It's not telepathy, not exactly. It's connection, a deeper understanding of the bonds that tie us together." Zirax's crystalline form shimmered with skepticism. "And yet you keep this a secret," he said. "Why? If your enhancements are so beneficial, why not share them with the galaxy?" Elena's lips curved into a small, bitter smile. "Because we know how the galaxy sees us," she said. "As reckless, as dangerous. If we revealed our enhancements, you would see them as a threat, a way to manipulate, to control. And maybe you'd be right, but that's not why we did it. We did it to survive, to become better." The room fell silent once more, the delegates grappling with the implications of her words. For the first time, they were beginning to see humanity not as a species of chaos, but as one of resilience and growth. But Gronther wasn't convinced. "You speak of connection," he said, his voice a low, menacing rumble. "But what of your history, your wars, your destruction? How can you claim to value life when you have taken so much of it?" Elena's gaze hardened, and for a moment, the room seemed to grow colder. "Our history is complicated," she said, "but it's also a history of learning, of growth. We've made mistakes, yes, but we've also learned from them. And we've used those lessons to become better, stronger, more united." She paused, her eyes sweeping over the assembled delegates. "But we're not the only ones with a complicated history," she said, her voice carrying a hint of challenge. "The Veln evolved their telepathy from predatory instincts. The Gran built their civilization on the ashes of methane wars. Even the Xyrillians, with all their logic and reason, nearly destroyed themselves in their pursuit of perfection. We're not so different, you and I. We've all faced our demons. We've all had to change to survive." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions a mix of shock and discomfort. Elena's words had struck a nerve, forcing them to confront truths they had long buried. It was Velnara who spoke first, her voice soft but resolute. Perhaps, she said, we have been too quick to judge. Perhaps we have allowed our own histories to cloud our perception of humanity. Zirax's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty, but he nodded slowly. The evidence is compelling, he admitted. But it does not change the fact that humanity is unpredictable. How can we trust a species that defies all logic and reason? Elena's smile returned, small but triumphant. You don't have to trust us, she said. You just have to understand us. And maybe, in time, you'll see that our unpredictability is not a flaw, but a strength. The room fell silent once more, the delegates grappling with the weight of her words. For the first time, they were beginning to see humanity in a new light, not as a species of chaos, but as one of potential. But as the debate continued, Elena's mind was already racing ahead, calculating the next move in a game that was far from over. She had revealed humanity's secrets, but there were still more to uncover, and the galaxy would never be the same.